Silverpine Forest, or simply Silverpine, is a vast ancient forest that runs along Lordaeron's rugged western coast. The land ranges from fairly flat to hilly and is nestled among even taller mountains. Gilneas borders the forest to the south, the Hillsbrad foothills to the southeast, while Tearsfall Glades lays to the north. Lordemere Lake serves as Silverpine's eastern border. The woodland is haunted and wild, characterized by its tall, silver-barked pines towering over grassy knolls. The forest is eerily silent, with dilapidated farmsteads and abandoned mines to dot the land, home now to the darker denizens of the woods. So now let's begin with the history of the Silverpine Forest. 2,600 years before the opening of the Dark Portal, the Nadrezim Karantantir escaped from Dalaran to spread his misery across Arotar, including Silverpine Forest. On the edge of the area, he brought a blight of locusts to destroy the trees and ravage the cropland. The Council of Tearsfall, led by Meryl Winterstorm, went to attack him, but a demon overpowered them and killed Elithide. The southern parts of Silverpine Forest, including Pyrewood Village and Ambermill, were originally part of the Kingdom of Gilneas before the Greymane Wall cut them off. The road that goes through Silverpine Forest was usually used by dignitaries traveling to the capital city, and was used by Anduin Lothar and the refugees from Stormwind when they escaped to Lordaeron after the First War. It was described as one of the great wonders of Lordaeron. During the Third War, the forces of the Lich King invaded the woods, making quick progress until their campaign stopped in a halt in the shadow of the Greymane Wall. The number of undead was small at first, but increased over time, and they did not flag. Fearing it would break, King Gen Greyman opened the gate and Gilnean soldiers poured from Gilneas into Silverpine Forest. The Scourge, however, defeated the soldiers and raised them into undeath. The Worgen threat was contained for millennia until Archmage Argal managed to pull the Wolf Beast from the Emerald Dream. Summoned by the order of King Gen Greymane, the Worgen were used to battle the Scourge forces stationed in front of the wall. Yet the feral creatures soon spread their curse throughout the human populace of the Silverpine Forest, infecting Gilnean soldiers stationed beyond the Greymane Wall. In order to contain this epidemic, Greymane abandoned Silverpine Forest in order to keep the curse at bay, though before long the affliction had advanced through the legendary barrier and was gradually eating away at Gilnea's humanity. Driven mad with guilt, Arugal adopted the Worgen as his children and retreated to the newly dubbed Shadowfang Keep, situated above the tiny hamlet of Pyrewood. He has created a wolf cult in order to spread the Worgen curse and to expand his Worgen family. The Scourge had also set fire to the crops, and the plague of undeath began to affect the trees, making them pale and lifeless with disease. After the war, with Lordaeron destroyed, the wizards of Dalaran busy rebuilding their home, and the citizens of Gilneas having locked themselves away behind the Greymane Wall. In fact, there was nobody left to take care of the forest. Though many pockets of Alliance resistance were scattered across Lordaeron, the largest group had gathered in Silverpine Forest after the Third War. This force was led by Grand Marshal Lothmar Garithos. Prince Keotas Sunstrider and his Blood Elves quickly seized large swaths of land and began preparing for their journey to the ruins of Dalaran. A Night Elf expedition under Maiev Shadowsong and Tyrande Whisperwind arrived at Lordaeron through Silverpine Forest looking for Illidan's Stormrage. They soon joined with Keotas and his Blood Elves and worked together to get them through the forest to Dalaran. Later, a fight between a temporary alliance of Night Elves and Naga under Malfearin's Stormrage and Illidan's Stormrage against the Scourge also took place in the woods in an attempt to rescue Tyrande from the undead monstrosities that were besieging her. Silverpine Forest was also used as the meeting place between the Banshee Sylvanas Windrunner and the trio of Natrezim, Balnazar, Varimatras, and Deathrock. After the ascension of Artis as the Lich King, the forest became occupied by the Forsaken, the minions of Tul Ravenclaw, of course representing the Scourge, and the forces of Arugal in a three-way battle that saw no proper winner to a point. Until the defeat of Archmage Arugal. Because after his defeat and the complete takeover of the forest by the Forsaken, this region was fairly silent for a while. However, the new war chief Garrosh Helpscream ordered the Forsaken to conquer Gilneas in order to establish a main overseas supply route to the continent of Lordaeron. Silverpine Forest became the staging ground for the Horde soldiers invading Gilneas. Garrosh himself arrived here and brought with him regiments of orcs and Tauren for the initial assault. The war proved costly, and their first invasion was repelled by the proud, now Worgen defenders of Gilneas. After the Forsaken defeat, the Gilneas Liberation Front gained the upper hand in the conflict, and the Worgen quickly began to wash over Silverpine Forest, reaching even the distant lands of Brill near the Undercity and Tearsfall Glades. The Forsaken had to resort to more reckless and experimental methods in order to win back their territory, such as using the Valkyr, the former servants of the Lich King, to raise the Gilnean noblemen Godfrey, Ashbury, and Walden, who did not accept the fact that their king now is a half-man, half-beast monstrosity known as a Worgen. With their help, the Forsaken managed to drive off the Worgen offensive back to Gilneas. But after the deed was done, Godfrey and his henchmen assassinated Sylvanas Windrunner and then fled to the abandoned fortress of Shadowfang Keep. Unfortunately for us, Sylvanas was resurrected thanks to the power of her Valkyr servants who gave their life for her. Now both Sylvanas and Ivar Bloodfang seek to eliminate the traitorous noblemen that now reside and plot behind the walls of Silverlane's Keep. Nothing interesting happens a while after that until we reach the Fourth War. Following the battle for Lordaeron, Silverpine was heavily targeted by Alliance forces, leaving the remaining Forsaken forces in the area defending the remaining holdfast. Troops under High Priestess MacDonald marched on to the Sepulchre while High Executor Hadric attempted to send reinforcements up into Tirisfal. Fenris Keep fell under the Forsaken control by Deathstalker Hayward's leadership, though they were ultimately defeated by the Bloodfang pack, which took over the island. The Horde later distracted these forces to allow Undercity refugees to evacuate across Lordemere Lake. The Forsaken, which controlled Shadowfang Keep at that point, turned it into a bioweapon facility under Chief Playbringer Harris. This was done to manufacture weaponry to use against the nearby kingdom of Gilneas, though the keep was surrounded by the 7th Legion forces led by Captain Tobias Zarin. Given the Pyrewood village is the most immediate area that surrounds the keep, it likely refers to this location. Alliance and Horde forces also clashed along the Deep Elm mine, with the Horde attempting to continue mining operations while the Alliance was attempting to take over the mines and sabotage said operations using gnomish explosive devices. Darius Crowley led the Gilnean army seemingly out of the region to attack the nearby sludge fields in the Hillsbrad foothills, which were attempting to send under reinforcements to attack Gilneas under the orders of Warden Stillwater, who at that point was supposed to be dead because of his failed experiments and everything. But World of Warcraft is World of Warcraft. When Matthias Shaw and Flynn Fairwind embarked on their journey to explore Azeroth as well as catalog the locations of various artifacts, they visited the forest. Shaw noted his main contact in the area as Ivor Bloodfang, stating that the pack leader was his contact within Shadowfang Keep. The pack has apparently claimed it alongside Fenris Isle and has taken most of the artifacts within the Shadowfang to Fenris Keep to be guarded closely. At the time of the rediscovery of the Dragon Isles, the Scarlet Crusade made a surprising resurgence in the region, somehow managing to take over Fenris Isle and Fenris Keep from the Bloodfang pack. Threatening the Forsaken holding in the area, including the ruins of Lordaeron, the Desolate Council mobilized their forces to wipe out the threat, combating within fringe areas of the forest such as Valgan's Field. They managed to sneak their way onto the island with the help of a hero of their people. Once on the isle, the hero sabotaged a number of Scarlet outposts along the Dawning Isle, allowing the Forsaken military to invade. After they forced the Crusader leadership to retreat, the Forsaken encircled Fenris Keep, where Lillian Voss fought alongside the hero against Scarlet Commander Forsyth. Without their leader, the Crusade was routed from the keep and the isle by the undead. In the aftermath of the battle, the Forsaken honored the hero, with Lillian claiming that the Forsaken have retaken the keep. It was never explained what happened to the Bloodfang pack, nor the artifacts they guarded within the keep itself. Now let's look at the geography of the region. Soft mists swirl gently near the moist, pine-needed covered earth with rich evergreen scent from the moist air. The southern portion of the land is more dreary, and the terrain resembles that of Gilneas rather than the rest of the forest because of the close proximity to the kingdom's border. Moving on from that, you know me, I like my renditions from the RPG because I think the World of Warcraft RPG is the pinnacle of the lore that could have been. But we'll get there. Have a little patience right now. Because in Warcraft 3, a large band of forest trolls called the Shadow Glen lived in the area. They also dammed the river Averas, putting them at odds with Illidan Stormrage's Naga. Gnolls also used to be inhabitants of the area, until the wider battles between the Forsaken and Gilneas started. And now let's look at the RPG. Silverpine Forest was once protected by the Alliance of Lordaeron, and they kept these woodlands verdant, pristine and beautiful. Now the place is a ghostly, haunted and wild land where mists cloak around. Forsaken control the forest and clash constantly with the wretched Rothhide gnolls. The wizards from Dalaran sometimes go into Silverpine to defend its human inhabitants and to investigate the undead plague and the mysterious Worgen curse. In a small cabin in the forest southwest lives Halmish, an old man who states the forest is cursed, not because of the plague or the undead, but by a curse that changes men into beasts. The Alliance once kept Silverpine Forest pristine and beautiful. In those days, the forest must have resembled the hinterlands far to the east. Since the Third War, no one is left to take care of the forest, and it has grown wild. After the Forsaken broke the Lich King's dominance, they claimed Silverpine as part of their territory, though many dispute that claim. The Forsaken have a special contingent called the Death Guard, which wanders through Silverpine on constant patrols. The Royal Apothecary Society, a Forsaken organization devoted to creating new toxins and alchemical substances, also has a strong presence here. The Forsaken leader in Silverpine, Shadow Priest Alistair, is concerned that the Dalaran wizards are showing an increased interest in the forest. A gnoll band called the Rothides lives here as well. Perhaps whatever afflicts the Forsaken affects the gnolls as well, for their fur is grey and patchy and their eyes yellow, rheumy and sick looking. No one seems to know where they came from. The Rothides and the Forsaken wage a constant guerrilla war against each other. A few human inhabited Silverpine Forest. These are desperate men and women holding out against the Forsaken, where they are Dalaran wizards on scientific missions. A fortress called Shadowfang Keep and a nearby village called Pyrewood stand in the southwestern Silverpine. At night, when the moon rises above the treetops and bathes the world in a pale light, terrible howls erupt from Shadowfang and Pyrewood, as if the men and women within had transformed into wolves, probably the curse old Halmish mentioned. A Dalaran wizard named Alphus Wardwill is researching on what he calls the Worgen curse. Only one place in all of Lordaeron bears traces of this strange curse: the fortress of Shadowfang and the nearby Pyrewood village. Alphus believes this curse is somehow tied to the moon. When the full moon rises, those afflicted by the curse undergo a transformation, turning into strange man-wolf hybrid creatures. This transformation is mental as well as physical. The Worgen, like Alphus calls them, desire to hunt, slay and eat, no matter their dispositions as humans during the day. At night, under the full moon, these individuals are bloodthirsty monsters. He believes that a possible cure might solve the problem instead of just simply eliminating them. He hopes that the cure, instead of preventing their transformation, would preserve their afflicted individual's mindset after it. Such an effect would allow good-hearted Worgen to take on fearsome physical abilities and use them against the Forsaken, the Scourge, and other evil powers. Given proper funding and support, he believes he can create such a cure. Alphus managed to get his funding and began working on a cure for the Worgen curse. He needed heroes to protect him and his servants as they moved through the forest, gathering regions and conducting tests. Later, he sends these heroes to sneak into Pyrewood and drop the cure into the water supply. Then they sneaked out and observed the change over several days. This activity undoubtedly angered Shadowfang Keep's mysterious overseers. In addition to staying alive through all of this, Alphus sent heroes to slay Shadowfang's evil lords to permanently stamp out the curse's evil. Geography-wise, Silverpine Forest is a vast, primeval wood that stretches along Lordaeron's rugged western coast. Gilneas and Hillsbrad foothills border the forest to the south, while Tearsfall Glades lies to the north. The massive Lordemere Lake serves as Silverpine's eastern border. The land is fairly flat, but small hills, mostly overhangs and grassy knolls are common. There are some rivers throughout the region. Tall, silver-barked pines tower over the knolls. At night, mists creep from the ground and mix moonlight into dancing spirits. Raised farms and vacant gold mines dot the land. Forsaken is an appropriate term for this region for various reasons. Many wild creatures roam throughout the trees, though they seem to be more aggressive than in natural. Undead, gnoll, worgens, vicious animals, and mysterious curses fill the land. The undead Forsaken haunt Silverpine Forest, though a few hearty souls hold out against them. The worgen curse afflicts some of the inhabitants. Now, as always, let's move into some important locations. And first we'll start with Ambermill, which was a human town located slightly southwest of Lordemere Lake and Silverpine Forest. Of course, Ambermill and Pyrewood were once part of Gilneas, and they were owned by the nobleman Darius Crowley. At the time of the Scourging of Lordaeron, the wall separated them from the rest of Gilneas when the doors closed, causing Crowley to lead a civil war against Gen Greymane that became known as the Northgate Rebellion. Prior to the advent of the Third War, Ambermill was a relatively unimportant site in the Silverpine Forest and was mainly used for lumber harvesting, but following the rampage of the Scourge and the Burning Legion throughout the Northlands, the rebuilding wizards of the magocracy of Dalaran began to form plans for the strategic use of the town. According to Shadow Priest Alistair, Ambermill remained a source of human opposition, mainly through the support that they received from Dalaran. Since Ambermill was located atop a dormant leyline energy node, the Kirin Tor attempted to reactivate the node for a large-scale project that was interrupted by the Forsaken, as they feared to lose their hold on Silverpine Forest if that had been accomplished. The Deathstalkers learned from one of their prisoners that the wizards of the Kirin Tor at Ambermill have stored away important documents pertaining to the current state of Dalaran. Menet Karkard asked an adventuring rogue to obtain the document. Avelia and Lily provided her tailoring service to the wizards of Ambermill, which was very nice. But then we move on to the Cataclysm, and by the time of the Cataclysm, the Forsaken conquers Silverpine Forest, leading the inhabitants of Ambermill to shift their entire town into a pocket dimension to keep the Forsaken at bay. It was later revealed that they abandoned their affiliation with Dalaran and were plotting to return to aid the Alliance in its invasion of Lordaeron when more reinforcements arrived. The town was only accessible from a dimensional portal in Baron's Peril, but it could only be entered by one person with a Dalaran's Archmage signet ring. Outside the pocket dimension, Ambermill Magi created elemental servitors to protect their territories from the Forsaken. However, the Horde adventurer managed to enter the portal on behalf of Sylvanas Windrunner and kill many Ambermill Mage and Archmage Ataric, the human responsible for keeping the pocket dimension active. When Ataric was killed, the town returned to Azeroth, leaving it open for the Forsaken to invade. Subsequently, the town was taken by the Forsaken, while Ataric and his wizards were risen into undeath. They later appeared during the final battle in Silverpine Forest, contributing to a Forsaken victory. A tragic fate indeed. Now let's look at Pyrewood Village, who was an alliance-friendly Gilnean village within the Silverpine Forest. The village was a settlement with a town hall, a blacksmith, and a chapel, inhabited by a group of humans who had survived the coming of the Scourge during the Third War. As we all know, the village alongside Ambermill were out of Gilneas thanks to the Greymane Wall. Following the liberation of the Orc from the internment camps by Traw and the splitting of the Alliance, King Greymane stated the construction of the wall. Lord Darius Crowley, who was the landholder of both Pyrewood and Ambermill, was displeased by King Greymane's decision to cut off his holdings from the rest of Gilneas and disagreed with Greymane on the rationale of succeeding Gilneas from the Alliance of Lordaeron. Jordan Stillwater and his wife Daphne once resided in the village and the keep above it. After the time of the Third War, the gates of the wall were closed, cutting off Pyrewood from any support from Gilneas and leaving its people to their own means while the Scourge drew closer. Some of the citizens of Pyrewood did not stay during the fall of Lordaeron. After finding the Greyman Wall would not open for them, they departed on a ship called the Sea Wolf, headed for Stormwind. After a severe storm that blew them off course, they landed on the eastern shores of Valsharach, where they founded Bradensbrook. Prince Keota's Sunstrider and his caravan, escorted by Tyrande, Whisperwind, Maiev Shadowsong, and their Night Elves, made it to Pyrewood Village as their last stop on their travel before the river Averas. The village was mostly intact and was built right on the edge of the river. Numerous Scourge forces, however, started converging towards Pyrewood in a massive ambush against the living. While holding the bridge that led out of the town and across the river against the undead, Tyrande fell into the water due to the bridge collapsing. It is unknown what happened to the village after that, but Tyrande's starfall may have successfully driven off the undead, as the village was still inhabited by humans in its later appearances. After the war, still unable to persuade Greymane to change his mind and upset by being cut off from his holdings and his people, Crowley and his rebels instigated the Northgate Rebellion. To the north, overlooking the village, there was a keep owned by Baron Silverlane. Silverlane, his servants and his forces, led by the paladin of the Silverhand commander Springvale, were slain by Archmage Aragal's Worgen, who then took residence in the keep, renaming it Shadowfang Keep. From there, Aragal cursed the inhabitants of Pyrewood so that they underwent a nightly transformation into the bestial Moonrage Worgen, then returned to their human forms upon the arrival of dawn. It was during this time that they became hostile to all regardless of faction. Despite all its hardships, however, the village continued to service Alliance travelers by selling cloth, leather, and mail armor to customers. During the efforts to eradicate the Worgen from Silverpine Forest, the Forsaken eventually disposed of Pyrewood Village, which was under the control of Aragal. Deathstalker Farlena enlisted Horde adventurers to aid to bring down the ruling council of Pyrewood, hoping that without their guidance, the other villagers would turn against Aragal. The Mad Archmage himself was later defeated and beheaded by agents of the Horde and buried in an unmarked grave just south of the village. During the Scourge War, the Lich King sent the Sanlin princes Keleset, Valanar, Terandris, and Ateran to raise Aragal as a ghost in the service of the Scourge. He was then tasked to subvert the trapper communities in Grizzly Hills. During the invasion of Gilneas, the Forsaken managed to take control of the town, which was half ruined for a period of time. However, Pyrewood was attacked by Alliance forces supporting the Gilneas Liberation Front, who defeated most of the Forsaken stationed there. The Forsaken were able to retake the village one last time, but on the orders of Godfrey they also burned it to the ground, leaving only ruins behind. A squad of Forsaken troopers could later be seen patrolling what was left of the ruins. Following the destruction of the Undercity, the 7th Legion led by Captain Tobias Zarin surrounded Shadowfang Keep, taking control of the areas immediately around it as the Forsaken gained control over Shadowfang Keep, turning it into a bioweapon facility to develop a new bioweapon to unleash against Gilneas. Given that Pyrewood is the most immediate area that surrounds the keep, it likely refers to this location. Captain Tobias Zarin was later encountered by the Horde's champion while his forces were targeted by Chief Playbringer Harris's plague. Shortly after the war against the Primalists, Kalia Menethil and Lillian Voss requested the presence of the Horde adventurer for a clandestine operation involving Gilneas and arranged to meet them in the abandoned town hall of Pyrewood Village. They explained the offensive about to take place to reconquer Gilneas, and that the Desolate Council wished to help the Gilneans to defeat the Scarlet Crusade who had taken control of Gilneas City. The trio then left to the ruins to join Princess Tess Greymane, waiting for them with a boat on the coast. Following the reclamation of Gilneas, Kalia and Lillian kept their word and withdrew the Forsaken troops from Gilneas before leaving the celebrations. In Pyrewood Village, they thanked the Horde adventurer for the help, hoping that Queen Tess would be more diplomatic in the future than her father, and that relations between Forsaken and Gilneas would improve. They then left the place and returned to the ruins of Lordaeron in Tearsfall Glades. Now that we've talked about Pyrewood, let's look at something very close to it, and that's Shadowfang Keep, that was once part of the Kingdom of Gilneas. It was the home of the Lords of Pyrewood Village who answered to Darius Crowley's family. The Lord of the Keep was Baron Silverlane, and his forces were led by Commander Springvale, a paladin of the Silver Hand. But we won't rehash that whole story. When the Scourge washed over Lordaeron, the Gilnean royal archmage Arugal investigated the research of the Mage Ur. With the sorcerer's knowledge, Arugal summoned the Worgen with the blessings of King Gengraven, and against the advice of the Kirin Tor. The Worgen successfully turned the tide against the Scourge, but became uncontrollable, attacking the Gilnean military at the Greymane Wall. After this, Arugal's Worgen ran rampant through Silverpine Forest, where they eventually overwhelmed the keep, killing Baron Silverlane and his family. Distraught and broken, Arugal accepted the Worgen as his children and retreated into the keep, which he named Shadowfang Keep. Commuting with Alpha Prime, he became a key servant of the Wolf Cult, converting the humans of Silverpine into Worgen, namely the Moonrage and Shadowfang packs. Protected by his Worgen minions, as well as the ghosts of the fallen Baron and his household, Arugal served his master in converting most of the forest's remaining denizens to the Curse, with locations such as Deep Hell Mine falling as well as Spirewood Village. After some time, the entire Spirewood Village was turned into the Worgen Curse, turning into the beast at night. During the day, they were human and willing to provide supplies to Alliance travelers, though the keep was never friendly to these adventurers. They were led by the Spirewood Council, who were all servants of Arugal. Of course, the Forsaken thought it was a good idea to get rid of them and the humans there, and so they decided to decapitate Arugal, as we've mentioned earlier. During the Scourge War, once Arugal was brought back to life by, the Salin Blood Princes, he continued to work to create the Wolf Cult. The undead Archmage made his home in a tower built and named for the keep, Shadowfang Tower, on Blood Moon Island. After betraying both Gilneas and Forsaken during the invasion of Gilneas, Vincent Godfrey, Baron Ashbury, and Lord Walden converted the abandoned keep into their holdfast against their enemies. The keep became a battleground between the Alliance and the Horde, vying for Godfrey's head, with both groups aiming to slaughter the man as well as claim the keep for their own respective factions. These operations were of course led by Ivar Bloodfang and Deathstalker Commander Belmont respectively. During the Fourth War, the Forsaken gained control over Shadowfang Keep, turning it into a bioweapon facility. In the RPG, there's not much information, but there's of course always a good part. The Worgen curse afflicts the inhabitants of this dark castle. Unlike Spirewood's good folk, Shadowfang's lords were bastards to begin with. They reveal in their curse and eagerly loop into the moonlight to spill blood and rip warm flesh from living bones. Their howls can be heard as far away as Ambermill. And finally, let's look at Fenris Isle. Fenris Isle was once home to a thriving military outpost of the Kingdom of Lordaeron called Fenris Keep. While the undead Scourge took the land, Fenris Isle was abandoned. All of its inhabitants either fled or were murdered. The island was then occupied by the Rothhide Gnolls, who took the keep as their base of operation. The Rothides were led by the treacherous master Tul Ravenclaw, who took complete control of the island and the nearby Decrypt Ferry. They were eventually defeated, of course, and sometime later the island was taken over by the Hillsbrad refugees who had made their way here from the ruined South Shore and Hillsbrad fields. These survivors of the Forsaken attack would live in peace, but for a moment, as the agents of the Forsaken along with Agatha entered the island and began killing them and raising them into undead. Darius Crowley and Ivor Bloodfang made the refugee leadership an offer they couldn't refuse. Either die and join the ranks of the undead, or drink the blood of the Worgens and accept the Worgen curse, becoming immune to undeath, and continue to fight for the Alliance. Most of them ultimately choose vengeance, temporarily driving away the attacking Forsaken and Horde forces, with several hundred Hillsbrad refugees becoming Hillsbrad Worgen shortly afterwards, and Ivor and the others having apparently made their blood offering to every surviving human in Lordaeron. The newly reinvigorated Worgen openly fought with Forsaken forces in Silverpine Forest, attempting to assist in the Gilneans in retaking their homeland and the rest of Lordaeron for the Alliance. During the Fourth War, after the battle for Lordaeron, Fenris Keep was overtaken by Deathstalker Hayward, who was later defeated by the Alliance champions, with Ivor Bloodfang and the rest of the Bloodfang pack reclaiming the island for themselves in the process. The Bloodfangs were distracted by the Horde forces along the Misty Shore, while Forsaken refugees escaped from Tearsfall Glades across Lordemere Lake. And after this, we know the story about the island and the keep changing hands several times, going to the Forsaken and then the Scarlet Crusade and then back to the Forsaken. It doesn't matter. We already went through that part. But overall, this was Silverpine Forest, an area dark and misty and filled to the brim with conflict between the undead and the worgen. A nice gothic place with a nice gothic tale, if you ask me. If you managed to reach it this far, please remember to like, comment and subscribe because it helps the channel out. Thank you.
Think you know everything about Silverpine Forest? Think again. Silverpine Forest, one of World of Warcraft's most eerie and enchanting zones. Home to the Forsaken, this dark woodland is packed with hidden lore and spine-chilling quests. Ever heard of the legendary Shadowfang Keep? It's more than just a haunted castle. It's a treasure trove of untold stories and rare loot. But wait, there's more. Have you stumbled upon the ghostly remains of Pyrewood Village? By day, it's a charming human settlement. By night, it's a cursed village full of worgen. Creepy, right? And don't forget about the elusive rare spawns like the mighty Fenwick Thatros. Tracking these hidden foes can lead to epic battles and unique rewards. So grab your gear, rally your friends and venture into the depths of Silverpine. Who knows what secrets you'll uncover next? Stay tuned, adventurers. More mysteries await in the world of Azeroth.